Howdy, I'm Jose Melendez, Campaign Director at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Today I'm joined by Don Huffines. We're going to talk about the duties of the Comptroller's Office, talk about DOGE, Texas' approach to government, transparency, providing tax relief to taxpayers. So Don, let's jump right in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jose. It's great to be on.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's start off with a very basic question. Talk about the Comptroller's Office. How should Texans think about this office beyond you just being the Chief Financial Officer of the state?
Well, most people don't know much about the Comptroller's Office, I'll tell you that, and that's certainly understandable because it's never been wielded right, of what I think the founders of our state wanted it to be. It has a massive responsibility for so many areas of our state. Let me just give you a quick summary.
Sure.
Okay. The Comptroller's Office is in charge of collecting all the money for the state of Texas. Any penny, every dollar the state brings in, taxes, fines, and fees, and whatever. And it's also in charge of managing all that money. Then it tells the state legislature how much money they have to set the budget for every biennium. Mm-hmm. And it's also the procurement officer for the state, means it's in charge of all the spending for the state and many other things it does. And right now, just to give you an idea of the scale of our state, is, we're the 8th largest economy in the world if we were our own country.
Mm-hmm.
We spend over $500 million a day, 7 days a week, every day, which is about $350,000 every minute of every day.
Wow.
So, and we collect more than that, praise the Lord. Mm-hmm. We're not in a deficit. So it's a huge undertaking to be the comptroller.
That's right. So one of the things you frequently talk about is how do we DOGE Texas? Tell us, what do you mean specifically, and maybe provide some examples of state spending where we could start looking at how we DOGE government.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, yeah, I think that all Texans are frustrated with our government and our government spending. Mm-hmm. Let's be real. Government never has enough of our money. They never will. And the more money they have, the less liberty we have. It's just about creating more. My goal is to change the narrative in Austin that the money belongs to us. It belongs to you and me. It's our money, not the government's. Right now, there's a whole attitude of, it's just somebody, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
Whether it's federal money, you can talk to the people and all, well, that's federal money. It's still our tax money. If it's state money, it's our sales tax money. So my goal is to change that culture. But when you have that culture, Jose, you get a lot of waste. You get a lot of fraud. You get a lot of abuse. And it could be everywhere and anywhere. And right now, I'm going to be looking, everywhere. It'll take time, but where we're spending the most money, that's health and human services, education. In those two areas, we spend about 70% of our budget. So those are the two areas I'll be looking at first.
Sure. And
so if we can save 3%, 5%, it's billions of dollars. The scale's huge. And don't think that Texas isn't without fraud and corruption. There's a lot of fraud and corruption in Texas.
So you walk into the Comptroller's Office on day one. What are 3 reforms that come to mind that these are absolute priorities that you need to tackle?
Well, first, what I said, I think the overall priority is to change the narrative. Sure. And to make sure that we get just even our language right of how to express what we're doing. But first is to tackle my own office. I have 3,000 employees. That's a lot. That's a lot to get your arms around. Mm-hmm. And I need to know exactly what they're doing. Who's deadwood, who isn't, who's productive, who's not. I'm going to be bringing in a new team. To tell you how extensive the comptroller is, we have 72 in-house attorneys. And so it's a whole law firm. And then they have their assistant attorneys. There's several hundred people in that division. I have my own law enforcement division. So I can, and my teams can enforce any laws in the state of Texas. So, but first thing I do is get my own office taken care of. and understand that. And we're going to be in session, so I've got to really focus on the budget. So the legislature and the guys down the street know exactly how much money we have to spend, and so we can get accurate estimates on it. I do the BRE, the biennial revenue estimate,
Right.
and so I have to be really accurate about that and be very definitive of what that is. And of course, that can change. And I'm not going to be there really probably ahead of time to have a chance to work on that. So that's first and foremost, because it's going to be a whirlwind to take office in January.
Sure.
With the legislature in session in January, and not to make a mistake.
I can tell you from a personal perspective, one of the you mentioned one of the things that I look at the comptroller often for, and I look at the comptroller for many things. That's a biannual revenue estimate, because in the when we're talking about property taxes, that's a very important element, because the BRE tells us how much the state has in terms of a surplus. And obviously that plays a big role in the discussion about property taxes. So I kind of want to shift the conversation into transparency and property taxes. When you think about transparency specifically, most Texans believe we've made some progress, but a lot of taxpayers are still asking themselves, how much is government spending? How much of that money are they receiving? And so what does a radically more transparent office of the comptroller look like?
Well, on property tax, it's important for people to remember that the state doesn't charge a property tax.
That's right.
And
That's right.
that's really hard for, what? We don't charge a property tax? No, yeah, you do. I'm paying it. No. The state doesn't do that. But it is, the comptroller's office does actually have quite a bit to do with the property tax. I train their property appraisers. I have a property valuation study that I'm required to do. The comptroller is for the different appraisal districts. So we do have a lot, somewhat to say about all that. But look, this is going to be the number one issue, Jose, at the state legislature coming up. We need property tax relief. Texans are tired of renting their property from the government, never really owning it, never even know what the rent's going to be. You know, I have fought on this issue for years and years. I've been a champion of property tax relief, but also a champion to try to solve the problem and not the symptom of the problem. The symptom of the problem is, the problem's the tax. Let's look at what we can do to eliminate part of the tax completely
Sure.
forever, and or do away with the tax entirely. And that's what I hope the legislature attacks this session.
Absolutely, and you mentioned it. It's the number one issue heading into next session, and rightfully so. It's the one that most Texans feel, right? It speaks to their pocketbooks, and we're seeing movement towards that heading into next session. The governor has come out with a 5-point plan on tax reform. Many of the items that I absolutely love, such as tax cut elections, empowering citizens to go and cut their taxes,
Yes.
Limiting local spending, and then on top of that, you mentioned that eliminating the biggest portion of the school property taxes, which is the school district M&O tax.
Correct.
To that end, can you elaborate on what's the comptroller's role when you think about state-provided relief, but also we're seeing this local spending growth?
Yes. Well, just an interesting thought. My research shows that Florida's property taxes are at least 30% lower than Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Their sales tax is 30% lower than Texas. They don't have a personal income tax like Texas doesn't. We have the oil and gas tax, they don't. But they spend about 40% less per person than Texas does. So we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem, as you just said, Jose. All this increase in spending with local governments and state governments is increasing a bunch. And that's what I'm a business guy, successful businessman. And, and I, like every Texan, knows that a dollar we don't spend is a dollar we just earned. So that's why I'm so focused on the spending. I have eyes and ears on everything the state spends. And that's what I'm going to do, is turn most of our auditors loose. I have over 600 of them. I'm cutting about half of them loose to audit specifically government, to find ways to audit government. Then we can take that savings that we find, hopefully, and I'm sure we'll find millions and millions of dollars, and get the legislature to apply that to property relief buy-down for the M&O tax specifically. And so and I think that's all, we can do that and buy that tax down and help everybody.
So touching on one of the offices that the Comptroller's office oversees, or the Texas Broadband Development Office is overseen by the Comptroller. They're tasked with administering billions and billions of dollars of state and federal funds. What are some ways that, or opportunities to save taxpayer dollars by better using those dollars?
Well, of course, not being there, Jose, as you know, I'm not in the office yet, and so I don't have real clarity on exactly what they're doing and what they're doing. I don't have any clarity on it for sure, but I can tell you this: in a Huffines administration, it's going to be it'll be different. Let's just say it'll be different. There'll be a lot more transparency, for instance. Why do we award this broadband contract to this company?
Sure.
I want to make sure that any company that's receiving some of these billions of dollars, this is billions of dollars at stake from the federal government and the state government, has the experience, for instance, to lay the cable. That's got the experience to do what they say they're going to do. There's been, in my understanding, a lot of contracts worth $100 million, $200 million sent to companies that were just gearing up and really had never done a lot of this. But the main thing is just ask the real quick, clear questions. Why are we really doing it this way? Is this the best way? What is the purpose of this? Is the purpose so one house in the 5 miles from a paved road can have broadband? Are we going to run cable all the way out to them and spend $50,000 for one family? Is there a better way to do it? What's an alternative system? And I'm sure they're sort of looking at that. With the rapid advancement of technology, and particularly with satellites, and we need to make sure that it's the correct way to spend the money. A lot of times government's just shoveling money out the door, and it's our money that's getting shoveled out the door, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen without the proper accounts and receipts, that this is what we need to do.
Excellent. So just as a final question, what does a successful time at the Comptroller's office look like when you look back? What does success look like for the taxpayers?
Oh, that's a very great question. I think you can expect in a Huffines administration there'll be a lot of consolidation. We're going to be looking at a lot of mission creep for a lot of agencies.
Okay.
We'll be consolidating enough that a lot of FTEs might need to be better positioned somewhere different than working for the state of Texas. I'll be using AI to evaluate a lot of stuff. I'm not going to necessarily depend on third-party contractors to handle a lot of the advice of what to do. I'm going to operate with a huge sense of urgency.
Sure.
And I can tell you that where AI is today, you're not going to believe where it is 2 years from now. So we're going to be as efficient and lean as possible. I'm not moving into a government agency to grow the agencies. I'm moving in to shrink it and make it better. Who's our customer? Who do we talk to? It's the taxpayer. Who does the money belong to? The taxpayer. This is our money. This isn't government's money. And if somebody's stealing it, I'm going to put them in jail. And I'm going to work hard to put a lot of people in prison. And I've done it before in Dallas County when I was state senator. And I'm looking forward to finding all the corruption in Austin and putting a lot of people in jail. It's the only way you're going to stop it.
And I think that's what most Texans expect, is that we just simply be good fiscal stewards of their tax dollars. Don, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your leadership.
Oh, thank you, Jose. I appreciate it. That's exactly what Texans are looking for. They want people to be held accountable if they're doing some malfeasance.
That's right.
And that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that'll do it for this episode of Taxpayer Empowerment. We'll see you next time.